So carry on with the economics. When I was a young farmer, the big thing is to try and to kill your steers before the second winter, because the economics are huge. You take them into that second winter, big heavy cattle, the damage they do environmentally, okay, all that stuff. So some of our clients we've worked our way back to that, and here's some figures here. Before the second winter, now to me the second winter is not real winter that you tend to think of. It's about previous to this, when we have calves and lambs around and feed shortages. That's the crunch point. That's it. You've got to have those killables away. And so this modern era, they're still there. And so here at Wharanui, these were killed some months ago now, but anyhow, it was long before the pinch period. So he freed up and had safe pasture as well. He's got pasture out of his ears now. But the interesting thing, we were killing animals at 21, 2 months. No, before that, 20 months, we'll say, is a round figure. At carcass weights as heavy as a year older. You start doing some economics on that, do the whole lot, and you'll see the balance sheet looks good one way and silly ugly the other way. No wonder our profit line has been screwed. With off-type animals, you have to take them through with a lot more food, which they don't fully utilise. Remember what I said earlier about the efficiency thing? So, yeah, and he sold them for, on average, $2,000. Wow. Freed up a lot of feed. He's sitting there, food bank. It's valuable stuff. It's all about a kilogram of dry matter. He's got so many options with it. Took the pressure off everything else on the farm. You add another 2 Ks on your lambs, you start doing your figures. That type of animal again. See the depth and the girth here? That's only a yearling bull. And lovely fullness up in here. You can see what we can add even on a beef. I haven't done that work, but you can multiply if it's 2 Ks on a lamb at 20, say 50K live, 48K live weight. And now we've got, this would be 450 Ks. You do the sums. You'll add a lot of value in this part of the animal. Then you've got a bigger cavity for your heart and lungs. Smooth operator. When you've got a tight little chest, everything's under pressure. The lungs, when it's like that, see the difference? Higher price wool. We're in another second shear cycle now, so our branded wool is coming on stream. My desire for crossbred wool is to try and crack $3.
Gee, that's not very optimistic, is it?
And then it's 5.
What's the clipping? How much wool are you clipping per head?
That's irrelevant, in a sense. But on the optimal animal, they've got the best fleece as well, and we'll talk about that live, okay? I'll show you that. So uniformity again, if you see that in that photo, they all look similar. Whether you're selling live type of wool, nice thatching wool, survival, that's a part of a survival kit. I just love my wool. It's the one, only 2 formal things I've done in my life that I signed something. It was a marriage certificate, and I went to 2 wool courses. And it took me into that world of fascinating fibre. But I had a lot since, of course. So now we've got genetic repeatability at a high level with longevity. See, we talked about that enough. It bangs your balance sheet big time. So talk in principle rather than the little specifics. That's what the other agenda want us to do. Get tied up over here and over here. Talk in principle. We've done you've seen we've done the fine tuning. Genetic repeatability, longevity, prepotency. Now we're getting somewhere. Certified product, branded product, blah, blah, blah. So I've covered that. Okay. in my view, it's the government's responsibility to get us back to pre-85 with our science. That's on the table as well in Wellington. Fund our science 100%. There's no compromise. Otherwise, you're trying to please your master, your part-funding master. That's what's happened. And you can have a crack at me because I know it's true, I've lived it. See, I'm talking to you today, I'm not talking about research, I've lived every facet with animals, right through from a little tacker from 1945. That's a bit different than getting a second opinion or reading research papers that may be screwed. Quite different thing. That budget is also on... Oh, we'll talk about it. We're all paying levies here. I've paid levies for 64 years. The chairman of Beef and Lamb just recently admitted they were carrying out orders on the other agenda. Using our money. That's pretty ugly.
What do you mean by that, Ian?
A lot of environmental stuff, a lot of bad advice about genetics, particularly. I'll stick to the genetic side. They've failed us. So I'll enlarge on that later, but that's, I think, worth talking about. Okay, let's get into some real-time live animals, slaughter animals. That's quite an old photo. There's a more optimal type carcass, so you're going to see that live today. And you can see a little difference in length and thickness. Those two carcasses, by our measurement, illustrate they are fairly optimal and give a high yielding with that right ratio, bone-fat-meat ratio that's required. That carcass difference represents the breed difference as well. So settle down, guys. It's in every breed. It's your choice. I'm not picking a fight. And I've handled every breed in the Tri-Nations, including woolworth sheep. I probably know more about woolworth sheep than most people in New Zealand because I've handled them. The Dorpers and you name them. The Walshes here going way back, way back.
Ian, are you saying the one on the right-hand side has a better conforming hindquarters to the one on the left? Are you making a comparison?
Yes, definitely. I mean, to me, that's very optimal. But we by measurement, we can't discount that animal, and it does represent some out there. It's still a...
Is that a different breed to the other one then, are you saying?
No, they're not actually. They're not, but that doesn't matter. I know they're very high yielding, both of them. So what I'm saying, see, it's not a hard line. Everything I do has got flux. It's in the ballpark. And those two carcasses, if you've got animals in that ballpark, whatever you breed, we're onto it.
So you're saying those are both good carcasses?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Where's that? Did you get that photo? You didn't print that photo off? No. Yeah. That there is where we want to hit with our killing sheets. That's from Alliance in 2005, and it's still the best outcome. Uniformity again. See the point? I went to market in South Africa. I was only there 5 years, and I said to my top guys, I tell every client when I rock up, I said, I'm going to turn you into marketers. Immediate reaction is, we create the product. It happens when the sperm hits the egg. You can embellish it in the freezing plant and all that, put electrical stimulation through it and all that crap. It's still the sole of your boot though. You can put that through and give it a shot of electricity, it's still the sole of your boot. So you put quality product through. So we did. That's off a 22k lamb. See the flank, the belly is meat. High percentage, and in fact the fillet, look at the size of the fillet here. So I walked through the supermarket and got the worst chop that I could for the right meat-fat ratio, and as you can see. Most expensive, we upped our price on all this, but per gram, we're a lot cheaper. The most expensive one in that whole shop was this chop here, that bit of red meat. Look at the wastage. See the point I said, bone-fat meat ratio, relative to mass? There we are. Now we broke some rules. What are we told? We've got to have a flash marketer. We're going to market. We've got to fund up. Come on, you guys. Another 5 million for a video about 5 years ago. Say we had the best lamb in the world. Hang on, there's only 17% of it the best now. So I'm speaking quickly for a reason. So Grafrenet is one of the third oldest town in South Africa. Incredible town. A lot of wealthy people there. A lot of people work around the world and they come back and retire there, so they've got the money. So that's where my headquarters, where I reside when I'm over there. So we went to town, supermarket, very good supermarkets. Two 50-year-old ex-bankers own the supermarket. So I went to them with a proposition and said, this is what my thinking is. They said, gee, we like this. And so we broke some rules. What do we hear? First of all, you have a top marketer, then a lot of advertising, and you've got to buy shelf space. That's all cost, 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 cost. When you've got a good product, no, it works differently. So I walked around the supermarket and the guy said, we'll give you the space over here by the tally, and it was a deli. And so this was the whole supermarket and there was an alcove there with the deli in it. And it was all the high price stuff there. It was tucked away. You know what, I turned him down. And he looked at me and he said, this Kiwi, something wrong with this Kiwi. He's got rocks on his head. And I just said, do you mind? I'll just explain. So we had all the aisles were coming this way and then a big aisle like that. And then everyone came out of these aisles and walked this way. And on the back wall was all the chillers. So I said to them, we were standing about over there where Joe is with the camera. I said, do you mind if I have that space down there? So everyone who walked down here just looked straight into our brand. He looked at me and then he realised what I'd said. He said, it's yours. Didn't have to buy it. He said, in fact, we'll go down and clean it right now for you. Get your product in here. And there it is. So we prepped ourselves all the way through and we had control of the product. There's one thing left, isn't there? We deserved the payment. And got it. We take back our industry, guys. We had cooperatives. What's happening to the last one right now in the slaughter field? Just closed a big plant. They're collapsing, aren't they? What future for us? What do you see in that photo as best as you can? And I'm looking at every cut.
They look the same.
Thank you. They all look the same. They're high quality and they're the same. To market by specification, and we start it, we're going to talk about it on the live animals out here. You guys are in control of your farming business. And hey, it's all coming out of the King Country. Yes! I'm so proud of that. We gave them a little, with each product, I interviewed everyone who bought our product for the first 3 days, and gee, I learned something. Particularly from, mainly you females do the buying. You know how you're buying to feed a family. I learned big stuff. And then there was 8 o'clock in the morning, this particularly beautifully dressed woman with a lovely coat on, and she was staunch, eh? She was going along. And then remember this, they didn't know our product was there. No advertising, nothing. But most of them bought, they sort of looked around and flicked one pack in and walked on. This lady bought 3 packs. She flicked them in. So I went up and said, oh, excuse me, blah, blah, blah. I had a bit of a patter, what we were about. And I said, I'm very interested why you bought 3 packs of our product and you didn't know anything about it. And she just went like this. She said, the quality, of course. I should have known. And it really rammed it home to me. The quality, of course. Wow. That was a payback. So we had that little storyline. Healthy eating experience, naturally grown, in with the environment of the highest quality. Our system is the audit for this whole outcome. And the client gets value for money. Simple, eh? There's our marketing packaging. Doesn't matter if it's a live animal, wool or whatever. So there's the main supplier. I'll just quality fibre. We'll enlarge a bit with the live animal, but first of all, thatching fibre is part of a survival kit. And at tailing time, if you've got that type of fibre, I mean, you can add 10% of your tailing should go onto your wool account. Because I promise you, you'll lose with off-type. There are a lot of animals out there with off-type wool, and mortality around birth, etc., is high. Let's be honest about it. The scanning tells us that this, with high scannings, suboptimal animals, and no one seems to boast about their tailing at the pub. There's a high mortality. So I just say put 10% of your tailing onto your wool account and see how your wool account looks. Think about it. It's a whole package.
You've lost me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
What's your tailing?
You're docking. Sorry? You're docking because you're docking probably 10% more lambs than you would if you had poor off-type animals that would die.
So, okay, you're talking about
The mortality. Yeah. See what I mean? Simple, fundamental budget. But we don't give credit where credit's due. And so we're making the problem worse and worse and worse by not recognising that fact.
Are you talking about the warmth that the wool gives through shedding water and...
Yep, all that, because when you've got off-type wool and a faulty wool, the wool will penetrate and hit a skin, so skin thickness is important. I measure skin thickness on every animal I ultrasound. It's important as well. There's some very thin-skinned animals out there. So if you've got off-type wool, thin skin, and if you go back to the fin, when the fin came out, they were like that. They were the classic animal to study. Structurally, they had P-sticks for legs. They had 5 lambs, up to. And what happened to most of those 5?
They died.
And they only had a bit of internal fat. They didn't have subcutaneous fat. They had sloppy little wool and thin skins. That's why they died. But who picked up on that?
How does that translate into sheep with no wool now then?
I've had a lot to do with wool sheep in South Africa, big time, but it's all about fibre. We can talk about fibre. If we want to talk about the breeds and talk about fibre, because it's all there for protection. And a lot of wool sheep have got shedding, they've got 2 types of fibre. So that's to be understood. But first of all, they've got to have good bodies. And a lot haven't.
They got thicker skins? The wool sheep?
No, they haven't. I've got some wool sheep that we've been working on. They've got skins. I just read some 3 days ago. They were like a calf. They were so thick. And this was over in Gisborne area where they have all the bad rain challenges at times. So yeah, here's a backup. In the 1990s at the field days, I had a whole tent of the meat, carcass, everything, and there's a wool section of it. Just a bit of backup. And that's when our wools went into the market. Chris Hart of Wrightson's wrote a testimony about our wools. You can read it there. The best wools we've seen in 35 years. Oh, which we used to see 35 years, but not today. So that was like 10, 12 years ago he wrote this. And it certainly stood out as a processor's dream. If you go to the wool store right now, and I've been through about 3 times just recently, you'll see what we're growing, and it's shameful. And we expect to get a good price. But I can say that an off-type animal usually has an off-type wool. It's just a loose comment, but it is fully true. The only fleece, a merino fleece, was a colleague of mine that got 100 points out of 100. Merino fleece was grown in the North Island in the Hawke's Bay. Interesting. Hang on, they're meant to be down south in the Alps. Proves the point again. So we've branded on cattle, particularly in South Africa, that we've passed and certified. We've got to brand them with the FQ, Falkirk quality, because some dubious stuff goes on over there with livestock. So we thought, well, if we branded it on the hide, that'd be quite definite. It's true, eh, George? Yeah. So there we are, back to now the system that we can. I've cut out a lot of stuff, but the fact we can impact all our industries, the Falkirk system at the head, focus on commercial producers, astute breeders, quality product off the market, blah, blah, blah. And the beautiful thing is, we're all in control of our own destiny. We're very trusting people, rural people, particularly sheep and beef people. That's why we were a target in '85. We gave our trust away and it was abused. We just have to take it back. Falkirk has taken it back. And it's a great world out there. I'm proud of what we've done and the people we're working with. So, okay, I'll just whip through. Okay, it's our mission statement: to empower producers to farm the most optimal animal, to reward classified, you can read the rest, classified product, meat, wool and livestock through value-based payment systems. And I should have the top one in red, really. To empower farmers to be independently strong. We control our own destiny. We make our business decisions with the best advice we can find. But it's been difficult since '85 to nail that device. And a lot of I'll capture this, our education institutes. Just remember, 3 of my children went through Massey. And it wasn't until our youngest daughter rang up, she'd only been there 2 or 3 months. She was a Dutch to Pupi College, so she was no fool, good sports person. 3 months later she rang up and said, "Dad, these lecturers are talking a load of shit." And she's frank, she's a lovely girl, good looking too, like a mother. And I said, "It's all right, sweetie, you just take what you need out of that and enjoy yourself." Well, I shouldn't have said the last part, but she did everything well and she ended up with a top job. But the fact is, she nailed it. So that's the minefield the younger generation had to go through. And if you weren't aware, you believed too much of the wrong stuff. So resulting outcomes after all this is low-cost systems, financial security. I've walked every step of this way, so I know. I designed this to save my own ass way back. To market by specification, we take the money. It goes straight onto our balance sheet. Everything saved through the Falkirk system is on your finances, is a conduit down the side, goes straight to your bottom line. And some of my guys are toting it up. They're keeping that as they make the gains. And better than that, your capital asset at home, your capital stock, have got greater value. Whether you want to leverage it or if at some stage you want to sell up, you're going to hit the top. And we proved that with buying some stock last year. We just went in and bought the top lines. In fact, with our involvement, we added value, but we knew their value. You see? So there's another gain, your capital asset. We tend not to focus on that because we're given an average figure. What a load of garbage. That's worth something and that's worth something, and it's different. And then you can manage your risk. You don't have the major risks. The animal health's in order. Handle the environment and its differences. I've got a client at Hicks Bay, they 4.5 metres this year of rain. He's breeding 3 sheep breeds and he got a top Angus stud, only 54 years of age. But you ought to see the wool that's come off as well. Hang on, wool's an enemy. King Country had the second share because of a high rainfall. Yeah. I live in Pupu and we have 2 metres up in the hills in Mairoa. Always had good wool though. We're profitable farming businesses, and it's a pleasure to farm. If we don't enjoy what we're doing, I'd suggest you give it up. I love what I'm doing. Philly Key from Charles Darwin, I do quote him a lot, but he made some great observations, eh? Accuracy of eye and judgment. You must have a clearly predetermined object, must be kept steadily in view. So don't flip-flop, flip-flop. Work out a plan and work towards it. No matter what the earthquake's on the way, the shaking of the tree, you go for it. And so some of my clients are reaping the rewards because of that. But the key is discriminating very slight differences. It's not about jargon, it's not about estimating your genetics. We'll talk about the slight differences out there on the live. So it's a private decision for you all to remain part of the problem, which is high cost, high debt spiral, or become part of the solution. Simple, it's your choice. Wealth creation and a high profit margin, and we fit in with the environment, the soil's working away. You've got nice animals up there, they're not abusing the soil because of their out of kilter requirements. They just need enough. I grew up with dairy cows on the farm. My first genetics was given to me by my grandmother at 12. That's her band when she's a single woman in 1908. She was single then. She gave me my first genetics, was her best pedigree Jersey heifer, because I had to milk it. And she did me a favour. I thank her, that's why I'm thanking her now. She could have given me the three-titted, hobbly-legged, buggered hip one, but she gave me her very best one, and I grew up with good animals. Then I had a little herd. When I got my first farm at 19, I shuffled down the road with a small flock of sheep and a mixed set of cows. But she taught me something right there, so I thank her. I won't go into that, okay. If you've got any questions?
That's it, is it?
No, it's not really, but I'm playing with the day,
No,
because we got outside as well.
Well, I gather what you're telling us here is about the Falkirk system, do you call it?
Yes.
Yeah, so if farmers are interested, how much can you tell us about how do they get interested, make contact with you, and what's it likely to cost them? And, tell us a bit more about the practicalities of becoming involved.
Okay, well, it's a personal thing, and it's farmer on farmer. And my clients here will back that up. They pay me for what I do by the hour. There's no front-end loading. There's no surprises financially at all. It's as simple as I can make it. The communications, I've got some printout stuff you can take with you to understand it a bit. Like we've covered a big field here today, but I've tried to give you an impression of what you could do and what perhaps you need to do and what's going to happen. I did mention I was going to talk a bit about the consequences of what happened last night with the politics in America, because it's already here. Our coalition is doing its work already. We are another, I said we were an experiment in 85, we were an experiment with the jab, because we're one of the most controlled countries in the world for a reason. I know that stuff. And we've been an experiment about the change, because we've had a coalition in for 12 months, and funny, isn't it? They're not fighting amongst themselves, they've each got a job to do and they're doing it and they're kicking butt.
So
for our benefit.
Question,
yep.
Actually, if you can send me something, I'll email it to everybody. Would you like to do that?
Definitely, and as I say, I got a handout as well, so yep, definitely. Simple.
So should we go and have a look at those animals now, or any more questions?
Good questions, Guy?
I've got to ask you, what role does performance recording play in the system?
Performance recording is vital. It's how you record. We elect to do it, you've seen the financial outcomes and by measurement, and about being precise as well. So why did I walk away from it in 1980 after only 8 years? Because it was conflicting with what I'd been brought up with. So I go back, farmers didn't even have scales in those days. We had wise old stockmen that used to come around and make judgments, and they were generally quite good. But I also realised as a young person that sometimes they used to fantasise a bit and fob off some of the farmers with good stories. I was fascinating with them about what they knew. But I realised what they couldn't see, they didn't know much about. And so that took me inside the animal, which I dissected and then ultrasound, and then so it goes on. So I told the story there. So yeah, it's too sloppy. As I tried to say, it's estimated, it's linear prediction. I'll just give you an example. My wife came home from Pupi College, she was a professional teacher a few years ago, and said, interesting guy's just arrived on our staff, he's from Australia. She said, I think you better go and have a chat with him, because Pat knows a bit of stuff, and she got a few short lines out of him. So I went down and had a chat. He was a senior data input processor from Armidale University. That's the engine room from all our ABVs come out of there. The whole lot. That was where it was created. ABRI, the whole lot, and then it was transferred over here. And he said, I had to leave Australia because he said, as you understand what a linear prediction is, it's a big oblong with thousands of little squares in there where that data goes in somewhere. And he called his boss in one day and said, what about this outlier up here? And sometimes they're down here too. He said, what do I do with it? And here's a profound statement that I don't agree with. The boss said, just bring it down to the nearest box and put it in there. He said, they'll never know. And the second thing, with my big business over there, suddenly I had people interested in what I was doing, some of the scanning people on the ground. And the top guy came to me and said, I want to work for you. I said, oh yeah. Didn't quite like his personality, but I said, oh yeah. So I went with him and watched him, looking over my shoulder on the screen. And they traced the muscle there. I don't do that, I read it differently. And I looked over my shoulder and I said to him, what about that part there you've just missed? And you know what? He turned his head around there and he said, they'll never know, Ian. Interesting, eh? That's sloppy. And they're playing with your data. So I hope I covered enough ground about the fact what they got a lot of things wrong about multiple site usage, which I covered. They don't understand longevity or prepotency. That's powerful stuff to make your genes, every set of genes, robust, to give longevity. They've done the opposite. So I made my judgment, everyone can make their own.